Welcome to episode 13 of Serial. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Kaylee. Today we're going to dive into why we believe Adnan Syed was falsely accused for the murder of Hae Min Lee. Before we start, let's recap what went down.
As we know, on January 13th, 1999, Hae Min Lee was murdered by strangulation. Her ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was accused of the crime and later sentenced to life in prison. His friend Jay confessed that Adnan did it and that he in fact helped him commit the crime. But is this all really true? Is Adnan Syed really the killer that he is made out to be?
We believe Adnan was wrongly convicted for the following reasons. His supposed accomplice was unreliable, a critical piece of evidence was never there, the time window for the murder was very tight, Adnan had a solid alibi, and lastly, the AT&T cell phone tower pings were questionable and unprovable. So let's dive in and explain every aspect of why we believe Adnan Syed is innocent.
So let's get started with our first reasoning. Jay was just an overall and inconsistent storyteller throughout his questioning sessions.
Jay was called to the stand as a witness, but his storytelling patterns prove that he isn't a very reliable one. There are three major inconsistencies in his story that leaves us as reporters and investigators curious. We're going to consider version 1 and version 2 multiple times telling his story. One inconsistency was where they went after the murder. In version 1 of Jay's story, he said that him and Anand went to Patapsco State Park, but in version 2, he never ever mentioned the park. This is a critical piece of evidence because when you're investigating a murder, you need to know every detail about that day. So why mention it in one story but not the other? Another inconsistency we found in Jay's story was where they went shopping that day. At first, Jay said that they went to Westview Mall to go shopping, but in version 2, he claims that they went to Security Square Mall. Although this may not seem that significant, it is critical because of the psychology behind remembering things. Consider this. You had your friend kill someone that day, but the day before was just a normal day. You see how you can't really describe a normal day in other words since everything blends together? You probably won't even remember what you had for breakfast. But you should be able to tell almost everything about the day your friend killed someone because the significant things that stay profound in our mind. This is why little switches here and there matter. The last inconsistency I would like to bring up is Jay said in version 1 that Anand brought up killing a week before the murder, but in version 2 he said Anand mentioned killing Hae on the day of the murder. We believe Jay said this to accuse Anand while protecting himself. Jay could have called the police a week prior since he knew about it, but he didn't do it in order to protect himself. To sum it all up, Jay is not reliable.
In addition to this, Jay's timeline also does not add up for another outstanding reason. The fact that someone stated that they saw him in person on the day and time that he was supposedly killing Hae. Asia McLean is one of Adnan's friends from school. She sent in a letter stating that she and her boyfriend saw Adnan that day, January 13th, in the library after school, aka when the crime is predicted to have taken place. Adnan had mentioned during his questioning that the library was a likely place for him to have been on that day after school. And since someone then confessed to have recalled spotting him that day, it makes Adnan look trustworthy and innocent, and gives him a strong alibi since he has an eyewitness. Asia had no reason to be defending Adnan or to lie about the events that happened that day. So, the only reason she had for submitting this letter was to help Adnan out, since she claims that she knows the real truth. However, this piece of evidence was not used by Adnan's lawyer during the trial. For whatever reason that may have been, the letter still gives more reason to believe that Adnan is innocent regardless.
Cell phone tower pings were also a great influence in this prosecution. So let's consider Jay's story really quickly and think what went wrong. Cell phone tower pings can't necessarily prove where a person was, but it can prove where a person wasn't. In Jay's story, there was a 3:21 call to Jen, 3:32 call to Nisha, 3:48 to a dude named Phil, and a 3:59 to Patrick. Although these may seem solid, you need to prove that they happened. Investigators looked through the cell phone tower pings and found that none of these were actually accounted for on the cell phone towers. So, was Jay lying about where they were and what they were doing? Also, another person took a look into this and said that a 6-hour time gap for Jay's story did not line up with the cell tower pings.
Considering technological communication, something else Jay mentioned in his story was that he said in part of their plan, Adnan called Jay from a phone booth in the Best Buy parking lot. However, this phone booth that Jay speaks of never actually existed. Sarah Koenig took this seriously and went out to Best Buy herself. Although she knew if there was one, it wouldn't be there now, she talked to management to see if there ever was one in the past. They looked through all the records of things bought for the store, all the pictures taken of the store, and no record of a phone booth was ever found. It was just a black hole. A large phone booth isn't something that is just forgotten or mistaken that easily. This is another example of a time when Jay lied during his story, and it makes him seem even more questionable and unreliable. How could Adnan have called Jay from a phone booth that never even existed?
Part of the wrongful accusation of Adnan Syed was what was brought up in court. Fingerprints. To be exact, Adnan's fingerprints. In the case of Hae-Min Lee, prosecutors found a so-called incriminating piece of evidence. In Hae-Min Lee's car, there was a map. Adnan Syed's fingerprints happened to be on this map, and the court said that he was proved guilty. But they are just wrong because they did not take into consideration that Hae and Adnan were dating on and off for almost a year, and logically that means Adnan would be in Hae's car. The court is saying that Adnan was in her car the time and the day she was murdered. One unfortunate thing about fingerprints is you cannot tell when a fingerprint occurred. So this piece of evidence used against Adnan is unreliable because it doesn't prove that he killed her, it only proves that he was in her car at some point in time.
Lastly, the time frame for this crime to have taken place is very tight and leaves many to wonder whether or not it could have truly been completed. Well, the time limit was tested a couple episodes back, and it was able to have been done in the time suggested. However, it was a close call. They were only able to complete the metaphorical crime within just a few tight minutes. They left the school right on time, got out of the parking lot, drove to the road to get to Best Buy, waited the time it would have taken for Hae to be strangled and killed, and the rest of events so on. They completed this whole series of events without any complications. On any given day, it would have taken more or less time to get out of the school parking lot, traffic on the main road could have been worse or better, and many other circumstances that are not consistent from day to day could have gone one way or another. And who knows how long it may have taken for Hae to be killed, since yes, it takes about 3 minutes to strangle someone. However, she could have fought back hard, which may have made it take even longer. So the fact that this time window was tested and shown to have been remotely possible isn't necessarily proof of anything. It is all too close to make a solid decision on whether or not it is possible to pull off this crime in such a short time limit.
So, given everything we have said today, we were asked to give our opinion on whether Adnan Syed was innocent or guilty for the murder of Hae-Min Lee. Due to the inconsistent witness, Adnan's alibi, critical technology advances, false evidence, unreasonable accusations against Adnan, and the acting out of the crime, we believe Adnan Syed is innocent.
But we cannot speak for everyone, so we encourage you to make your own decision. Put yourself in the jury's shoes. Is Adnan Syed guilty for the murder of Hae-Min Lee? I'm Maggie.
And I'm Kaylee. See you next time on Serial.